Welcome to the deep dive. Today, we're tackling something that feels, well, both incredibly futuristic and deeply personal.
That intersection of AI and our own minds, our psychological wellness.
Exactly. We've got quite a stack of material here. It really pushes us to think about how this super advanced tech connects with, the messy reality of human emotion. We have sources that try to define mental wellness itself, which is tricky. Others trace how AI even got into psychology in the first place.
Right. And then there's this specific tool, Imentiv AI, an example of emotion detection being used to sort of help out human caregivers.
Okay, let's unpack this.
Good place to start, because before we even touch the AI part, we need to figure out what we're aiming for. What is mental wellness? Why is it apparently so hard to measure that we might need AI's help?
That's the core issue, isn't it? We throw the term around mental wellness way more than just not being mentally ill.
It's holistic.
Yeah, holistic. It's about managing your emotions, sure, but also coping with stress, having good relationships, making choices that feel meaningful. It connects your inner state to how you actually function out there in the world.
And psychologists really frame it as something active, not passive. It's less a state you are in and more like a dynamic state of functioning really well.
Optimal psychological functioning.
Right. Having the resources, the internal stuff to handle what life throws at you. Being able to grow, find meaning. Basically, to flourish.
Flourishing. I like that word, but it sounds a bit vague. How do you measure flourishing?
That's where these psychological frameworks come in handy. Carol Reif's model from, what, 1989?
Yeah, 89. It tries to break wellness down into 6 concrete things.
Yeah.
Measurable dimensions.
They're not just feelings, they're like capabilities almost.
Okay, let me see if I remember them. Autonomy. Personal growth. Self-acceptance. Purpose in life.
Environmental mastery.
Right. Environmental mastery, managing your world, and positive relationships. Looking at that list, you realize you can't just ask someone, hey, are you well? You need to see how they're actually navigating things.
Exactly. And take environmental mastery, your ability to handle your job, your home life, whatever. You can see right away why some objective data, maybe even from AI, could be useful.
How so?
Well, someone might say they feel fine,
Yeah.
But if AI picks up patterns, maybe in their voice, maybe in how they describe things, that suggest they're really struggling to manage their environment, that's valuable info.
That makes sense. It gets beyond just self-reporting. This also connects to Corey Key's work from 2002, right? The whole idea of flourishing versus languishing.
Languishing, such an important concept. It's that state of, man,
Yeah.
you're not depressed, not in crisis, but you're definitely not thriving. You're just sort of stuck.
In neutral.
Exactly. Keyes argues the goal is active flourishing. And crucially, emotional well-being within that isn't about being happy all the time. It's more about balance and resilience.
Okay, resilience. The ability to feel the tough stuff, stress, sadness, whatever, but then bounce back. That does sound like a pattern.
Right.
Something that an AI, watching consistently over time, might actually spot better than a person who only sees someone for an hour a week.
That's the potential leap, isn't it? Resilience, that speed of bouncing back. It's a dynamic thing. It really requires long-term observation, which, let's face it, is hard for humans, but potentially easy for AI.
Okay, so we've got this complex, multi-layered target, mental wellness. Now, how did something like AI, something seemingly so, mechanical, get involved in trying to measure the human soul, so to speak? It started way earlier than I thought.
Yeah, mid-20th century, way back. The initial question wasn't even about mental health directly. It was more fundamental. Okay, humans think. Can machines think too?
The Alan Turing question, basically.
Pretty much.
Yeah.
And that sparked cognitive science.
And that's the bridge. According to our sources, AI didn't start with feelings. It started by getting into cognitive psychology, how we think, learn, remember, solve problems.
Researchers started seeing the brain, metaphorically at least, as an information processor, like a biological computer.
Sounds a bit reductive, but I see the utility.
It allowed them to use early AI models to simulate things like memory or logic, trying to understand how the brain actually worked by building models of it. The computer became a kind of a test bed for the mind.
And you had some major figures straddling both fields, computer science and psychology.
Oh, absolutely. People like Herbert Simon and Alan Newell, they built the first AI programs aiming to show machines could actually mimic logical thought.
Groundbreaking stuff back then.
Definitely. And then Ulrich Neisser, who's often called the father of cognitive psychology, he really solidified that link, viewing the brain through that information processing lens.
It's kind of wild to think about reducing thought to steps a machine could follow.
But that perspective, that our experience, even thought, has underlying patterns, that's what ultimately opened the door for today's emotion AI. We also have to mention Noam Chomsky.
For language.
Exactly. His theories about how we process and generate language, the deep structures underneath grammar, were hugely influential for AI language models later on. Without understanding those patterns in language, you couldn't build the chatbots or analyze sentiment in text like we do now.
So the path was model thought first, then later model the expression of emotion. AI went from being a research tool for understanding the brain to something potentially helping with the brain, like those therapy chatbots, Wobot, Wysa.
And that brings us right up to the present and this idea of emotion AI, where that history meets practical application.
Let's zoom in on Imentiv AI then, as our case study. It's described as emotion AI technology that tries to recognize and interpret emotions using multiple signals, face, voice, text, multimodal.
Multimodal is key, because we don't express emotions just one way, do we? It's the whole picture.
Right, a clenched jaw and a strained voice and short, clipped sentences in a text.
Precisely.
Yeah.
So the platform aims to synthesize all that, providing objective, data-driven insights to a human professional. It's not just relying on what someone says they feel or what a therapist thinks they see. It's capturing lots of data points.
Okay, let's talk features. Speaker diarization. That sounds technical, but what's the practical benefit?
Think of it like an AI transcriptionist, but way smarter. It takes, say, a recording of a therapy session, or even just a conversation, and it breaks it down. It identifies who is speaking, when they spoke, and here's a kicker. It tags the emotion detected in their voice or inferred from their words at that specific moment.
Okay, I can see that being useful. Maybe in family therapy or couples counseling.
Exactly. Imagine a heated discussion. Someone says, "I'm fine," but the diarization shows their voice actually spiked with, say, 70% stress markers right when their partner was talking about finances.
Ah, okay. It uncovers those hidden reactions, the things people might not even be aware they're showing.
It pulls apart the conversation stream and flags those emotional friction points for the clinician, things easily missed in the moment.
Got it. And then there's the valence arousal emotion graph. How does that visualize things?
It's a neat way to map emotions. Think of a graph. One axis is valence, how positive or negative the feeling is. The other is arousal, how intense or calm the feeling is. High energy versus low energy.
So anger might be high arousal, negative valence?
Typically, yes. Sadness might be low arousal, negative valence. Excitement could be high arousal, positive valence. Contentment may be low arousal, positive valence. It gives emotions coordinates.
So you could track someone's emotional state over time on this graph. Like if they're talking about something difficult, maybe they start high arousal, negative valence.
Right, intense and negative.
But over weeks of therapy, maybe the valence stays negative. It's still a sad topic, but the arousal drops. It's less overwhelming, less activating.
Precisely. It can show progress in that resilience we talked about and their ability to process difficult feelings without getting completely overwhelmed. It visualizes the bouncing back.
Interesting. Then it adds another layer. Personality traits analysis using the Big Five model. Ocean.
Openness, conscientiousness, extroversion, agreeableness, neuroticism. Standard psych model.
But hang on, personality feels really subjective. How does an AI measure something like openness from just conversation? Isn't that a bit simplistic? That feels like a potential pitfall.
That's a really important question, and you're right to be cautious. The AI isn't reading minds. It analyzes patterns in language, word choice, sentence structure, maybe even speech tempo that studies have shown correlate with those traits.
Correlate. Okay, but correlation isn't causation.
Exactly. For instance, someone high in conscientiousness might use more organized language, talk about plans more often, but relying only on that technical pattern matching, that would be risky. Oversimplification is definitely a danger.
So what prevents it from just being like a fancy horoscope generator based on word count?
This is where a crucial element comes in: psychological validation, meaning they have an actual psychologist involved, guiding how the AI interprets the data. It's not just engineers looking at code. The psychologist ensures the system's analysis is grounded in real psychological understanding.
So the AI might detect rapid speech.
And the psychological input helps it try to distinguish, is this the rapid speech of excitement or the rapid speech associated with anxiety?
Mm.
It adds that layer of context, linking the tech back to established psychological knowledge, like Reef's dimensions we discussed. Human oversight.
Human intelligence guiding the artificial intelligence. That seems vital. Okay, so where is this kind of validated tool actually being used? What's the application?
The big advantage seems to be objectivity and consistency over time. It spots subtle things, maybe that hint of stress buried deep in the voice tone, and keeps a record, session after session. That longitudinal data helps professionals see if interventions are working, if someone's emotional baseline is genuinely shifting.
Not just relying on how are you feeling this week.
Right. It provides more data points to track that emotional evolution.
Okay, specific examples. Therapy. Seems obvious.
Yeah, it's like giving the therapist another very observant set of ears or eyes. It flags emotions the patient might be downplaying, consciously or unconsciously, or maybe struggling to even name.
So if a patient says, yeah, I'm coping fine, but the graph shows a huge arousal spike whenever they mention work.
The therapist has an objective signal. Okay, let's maybe explore that topic a bit more. It's a conversation starter backed by data.
And then there's childcare. This seems potentially huge, but also maybe a bit surveillance-y.
It's a fine line, for sure. But the idea is kids often can't articulate complex feelings like anxiety or deep sadness. They might act out instead. So the AI could potentially monitor communication patterns maybe between parent and child, or even just analyzing a child's speech over time to catch early warning signs.
Like increased vocal stress when talking about school, or a sudden shift in language patterns suggesting withdrawal.
Things like that. The goal isn't diagnosis, but early detection of potential distress, allowing parents or teachers to offer support sooner before things escalate. But ethical use is paramount there.
Absolutely. And what about bigger settings? Institutions.
Think schools monitoring overall student stress levels, maybe identifying periods of high pressure around exams, or workplaces using it carefully, very carefully in HR to detect widespread burnout signs without needing intrusive surveys.
Anonymized, aggregate data, maybe?
Ideally, yes. Or in support groups, tracking the flick of mood or seeing if certain discussion topics consistently trigger negative valence across the group. It helps tailor support.
Okay, the potential applications are broad, but this brings us crashing into the limitations, the big red line.
And this is the absolute crucial takeaway for anyone listening. The sources are crystal clear on this. Imentiv AI and tools like it are augmenting tools, helpers, data providers.
They are not diagnostic tools, full stop.
Cannot stress that enough. It gives you data, it gives you clues, objective measurements perhaps, but it does not and cannot tell you someone has depression or anxiety or any specific condition. It doesn't interpret the why behind the data.
And it absolutely does not replace a human being. A therapist, a doctor, a parent, a teacher.
Never. The system provides the what, the data points, the patterns, but the so what?
Yeah.
The understanding, the empathy, the context, the treatment decisions, the actual care that must always come from humans, especially professionals trained to understand those complex wellness frameworks from riff and keys we started with.
So it's a powerful assistant, but the human remains firmly in the driver's seat.
Has to be.
Okay. So wrapping this up, we've seen this blend of cognitive science history, deep psychological definitions of wellness, and now this cutting-edge AI. It seems to offer a new, maybe more reliable way to track something as slippery as emotional well-being or psychological competence.
Bringing some objectivity to the subjective.
But always with that human element, the connection, the context, the meaning being absolutely essential for any real growth or healing.
Right.
So what does this all mean? We started with those complex ideas, Rife's life purpose, keys flourishing, this focus on resilience. Emotion AI, like Imentiv, gives us a potential way to measure the dynamics of that resilience, the balancing act.
Quantifying the bounce back.
Exactly. So here's the thought to leave you with. If this technology gets really good at measuring how quickly and how effectively we navigate and recover from emotional challenges, not just spotting the initial stress, but tracking the recovery curve, what does that unlock?